All right, we're going to talk about section 5.5 again. This is going to be the third part of that. We're going to talk about factoring completely and then graphing it. So what we need to do is use synthetic division for a polynomial to factor it completely. Let's look at what that means. So let's synthetic divide this problem here. So remember synthetic division, what we do is we need to look at what makes the polynomial that we're dividing by, this piece here, equals 0. Well, -1 would be that part. So we're going to put the -1 on the outside. And then we're going to count down using our exponents here. We're going to count down from 2, 1 to 0. Look at the coefficients in front. So we have 1, 4, 3. That's how we set it up. Now let's solve it. So remember, we bring down our 1. -1 times 1 is -1. Add those, we get 3. -1 times 3 is -3. Add those, we get 0. And that 0, that's our remainder. So what does that tell you right there? It tells you a couple different things. That tells you that first, our answer to this piece is just x plus 3. It also tells you that we can divide x squared plus 4x plus 3 by x plus 1 evenly because there's no remainder. So what that also tells you, since I can divide it, that means that I can multiply x plus 1 times x plus 3 to get us x squared plus 4x plus 3. Let me show you quick that that's true. So we're going to multiply here. We get x squared plus x plus 3x plus 3. Combine our like terms, we get x squared plus 4x plus 3. So really, this is another way we can use to factor. If we know one of the zeros, we know one of the factor pieces, we know we can factor it more. So let's look at a problem that we really can't factor as easily as we can with quadratics. Let's look at 2x cubed minus 11x squared plus 3x plus 36. We know that x minus 3 is a factor. I'm telling you that x minus 3 is a factor. So that tells you right there that I know that I can do synthetic division using 3 on the outside. Now we count down using our coefficients. Our third coefficient is 2. Our second coefficient is -11. First coefficient is 3. And 0th coefficient is 36. All right, let's solve this. Bring down our 2. Multiply, we get 6. -5 times 3 is -15. Add those, we get -12. 3 times -12 is -36. Lo and behold, we get a 0 on the bottom. That proves that x minus 3 is a factor. So what that tells you is that what we're left with now is x minus 3 times 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. That's going to equal f of x. That is our factored version thus far. That's how far we've factored. Well, now let's look at this second piece here. Can't we factor that more? Well, I don't know. Let's see if we can factor it more. So I'm going to use factor by grouping here. We know that 2x squared, or so 2 times -12 is -24. So what multiplies the -24 but adds to get you -5x? Well, that's going to be -8x plus 3x. Remembering that this x minus 3 is on the outside there. But I'm going to forget about that for a little bit. I'm just going to let that sit tight out here. And I'm going to factor this part in here in the blue. So we do our factor by grouping. We get 2x times x minus 4 plus 3 times x minus 4. So really, now I'm going to bring down my x minus 3 as one of my pieces times x minus 4 times 2x plus 3. That is our factored version of f of x. That is our fully factored version. So now if we need to find the zeros of the function, what are my zeros of the function? Well, all we have to do to find the zeros of this function is set each piece equal to 0. So x minus 3 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0, and 2x plus 3 equals 0. So we get x equals 3, x equals 4, and x equals -3.5. Sorry, 3 halves, not -3.5. So what does that mean? Well, that means at those points where x equals 3, we cross the x-axis. Where x equals 4, we cross the x-axis. And where x equals negative 3/2, negative 1.5, we cross the x-axis. So sketching a possible graph, well, we know it's going to end up here. So what's going to end up happening is the graph's going to have to go up through there, come down, come back up really quickly, and go through there. That's my possible graph that I'm going to get. We'll talk more about what the graph should look like more specifically in section 5.6, but right now we're just going to talk about a possible sketch that you could have. All right, so now I showed you guys one step by step. I'm going to go quicker on this guy. So first I'm going to set it up, and then from there I'm going to solve it to prove that x minus 4 is a factor. And since we end up with 0 as our remainder, it's proof that this is definitely a factor, and we end up with our f of x looking like this. Now we need to factor that more. Can we factor that second piece more, x squared minus 2x minus 3? Which we can. To get the f of x factored is f of x equals the quantity x minus 4 times the quantity x minus 3 times the quantity x plus 1. Now let's figure out our possible zeros, figure out our zeros for this graph. So if you look, there are my zeros that I would have for this graph, those three right there. So a possible graph, seeing that I don't know much about how this works, I do know that we're going to end up going through each of these. So I could go like this. Now I personally know more about the graphs. I know that's not what it's going to look like, but I know that that's a possibility since we're going through three places. Since I know a little bit more about graphs, I know that it's going to end up down here, go like that, and go on infinitely long. All right, let's try another one. Now this one's a little bit trickier because it gives you information in a different way. It tells you that our 0 is 4. So what does that mean? If a 0 is 4, what does a factor look like? Well, what would my polynomial look like if a 0 was 4? What would it end up having to be? Well, it would be x minus 4. Because really we're going backwards from that 4 makes it equal to 0. So it's x minus 4 is one of my factors. All right, now that you guys know that, I want you to try this one on your own, get a sketch of a graph, and I'll put up an answer here in a second. All right, so here's what I got for my graph. Notice a couple things. First, if I was looking at this part right here in the green, that would be my factors. My factors are x minus 4, x plus 4, x plus 1. If I was looking at this part in the purple here, these would be my zeros. X equals 4, x equals negative 4, and x equals 1. So I have my zeros and I also have my factors. So make sure you can distinguish between the two. That's all I'm going to talk about in this first video, or this last video from 5.5. Make sure you guys check your work, rewatch the video if you need to. Let me know if you have any questions.